Today we're talking about Fenrir, more specifically about the Fenrir buff that we got last patch. First of all, a quick reminder of what exactly got buffed, especially now that the patch note side is down. Unbound Runes. This passive no longer affects Seething Howl. That means that Seething Howl, Fenris 2, will no longer consume any runes upon being used, which can be quite helpful in many situations, and that was one of his biggest issues before. Logically, as such, Seething Howl itself sees the same change and will no longer consume runes from Unbound Runes. Also, the physical power buff is increased from 10 to 70 to 20 to 80, and this is now unconditional, so you can get up to 80 power by using your 2. The lifesteal buff is also increased from 30% to 75%. At the same time, that means there are no longer any amplifications to the 2 outside of that could be achieved through runes. That is actually not too bad though. The old buff was barely used in any serious engagements and was usually either used to attack cancel or more often to just heal up on minions in between waves and to amplify your damage after your initial initiation on the enemy. So while beforehand you could reach values of up to 105 physical power and 45% physical lifesteal, now those values are still relatively close. You lose 25 physical power, quite a fair bit, but still a lot more usable than before. And you lose 10% lifesteal, also not too bad when his primary damage still comes from abilities anyways. Brutalize also got an additional buff. Fenrir now gains physical and magic protections of 5 plus 1 per level when channeling this ability. That means that you will effectively be able to survive through your Brutalize a little better. Often this was a moment where you would deal a high amount of damage, but also be very vulnerable to attacks from the enemy, as you're kind of stuck in that animation and you can't really do anything else whilst doing it, unless you want to cancel it. Note that while you have more protections, you're just as vulnerable to crowd control as before, and your protection buff does not consist after your Brutalize is done. So if you already used your other abilities and you use the Brutalize to engage afterwards, you'll be left as much of a sitting duck as you were beforehand if the enemy has an option to CC you. The last buff goes to the ultimate. Ragnarok's damage has been adjusted to be consistent per rank increase. That's actually just a very minor difference. It means that the 4th rank will deal 5 more damage, so nothing too crazy here. The other part is more important. Increase the range of the attack from 12 to 15 and added a cone targeter to this attack to more clearly show this range. This in combination makes it much easier to pick up a target when they're running away from you or trying to juke you, as well as giving you more clarity if an enemy can be grabbed or not, which was always a bit irritating, as this bite animation takes a little bit of time and sometimes really felt strange to have an enemy basically in your mouth and then still see them slip away. That will be a lot more clear now, and I think that's a very good change. With these changes, I figured it would be interesting to see if there's any value at all in maxing Fenrir's 2 over another ability. For example, maxing it over the 3 and just going for Unchained with a maximum damage through Seething Howl. And this is what I came up with. If you're looking at the base damage of Fenris 1, that is 95. The base damage of Fenris 3, if you hit all 4 hits, is 180. The damage increase per rank of his 1 is plus 60 base damage. The damage increase on the 3 is plus 120, once again assuming hitting all hits, otherwise it's just 30. And then we have the scalings, that is 80% for the 1, whereas we have 200% for the 3, assuming all hits are hit. The power increase for the 2 now scales up by 15 still, but the start value, the base value, is 20, and it goes up all the way to 80. So how much extra damage would we get if we maxed the 2 instead of the 3 or the 1? The damage increase for the 2 would be 12 extra damage. That is pretty lackluster if you compare it to the 60 that you get per rank by leveling this ability. Likewise, on the 3, you would get a damage decrease of 30 per rank if you hit all the hits, instead of the normal 120. Obviously, by maxing the 2, you get extra damage on both abilities. The real benefit in terms of damage in your combo, if you hit everything, would be 42. Still doesn't really come close to what an extra point, especially in the 3, would offer you in comparison. To put this a little more in perspective, if we had the 3 Brutalize on rank 5 and the 2 Seething Howl on rank 1, then we would deal 700 damage with a full Brutalize. That is obviously before any sort of mitigation, but that goes for everything here. If we, on the other hand, leveled Seething Howl and had that on rank 5 and Brutalize on rank 1 instead, we would only deal 340 damage. There's something I don't really like doing, as it doesn't really reflect every engaged situation, but we could factor in the ult for damage here as well, which has 120% scaling. I do believe that's usually not advisable, as you will actually end up skewing the numbers for any engage where you're not using the ultimate, but in that case you would actually end up with exactly 60 damage per rank increase across all 3 damaging abilities that are left. That is exactly the same damage as you would get out of an extra rank in your 1, and it's almost the same as you would get out of putting an extra rank in your ultimate, which gives you extra 75 base damage. The thing is, you also have to use your 2 in order for this to work. As long as your 2 is not up, you will not get these extra benefits. The buff duration of the 2, however, is 6 seconds, and in most situations your engage should be over after that, so normally you should have it for the full engage. That means a change in leveling order could actually be worth it, but maybe not the one that some people were assuming. Also, it obviously depends on how you were leveling Fenrir before. But I'll give you something to consider here. First of all, how many people actually use the ultimate for damage? Most of the time, the ult is used to pick up a target, bring them to your team or wherever, and then have better kill potential on them by putting them out of position. Obviously, the damage is a nice extra, and the damage can be used for kills, especially in 1v1 engagements. But you will have a lot more engagements where you use your 1 unchanged and your 3 brutalize. And now, obviously, with the change to Seething Howl, you can throw that in. You want to use that before you engage in the first place. So in those engagements, leveling your 2 Seething Howl or maxing it after you maxed your 1 and your 3 can give you an extra 42 damage per rank. And that once again means you don't have to use the ultimate for extra damage, and if you were to use the ultimate, then the damage loss would be 15. 15 damage is quite, well, negligible if you consider that you will also get more damage on any basic attack, and you should be getting around 15 extra damage per basic attack. So, if you're landing 2 basic attacks, you will already have outdamaged the extra damage that you get from your ult if you max Seething Howl first. So your leveling priority, depending on if you can get interrupted or not, should be either your 1 or your 3 first, and then when those are done, you should focus on the 2 before the ultimate. Obviously, you should still put 1 point in each of them to get the benefits from them regardless. Now, a lot of you may be asking or wondering, what does this mean for Fenrir's place in the meta? In a classic damage assassin meta, I don't think his place has changed all too much. Yes, he gets more damage on initial engage, a little more here and there, he can use his stun more effectively, set up better, and that's all very nice and very beneficial to him. But in the end, he still isn't the greatest assassin in terms of his kit at the moment. When gods like Artia are around, who can not only interrupt his 1 and 3, but also completely block them from being used. That just puts him in a very awkward spot, and along with that, there are just other assassins that basically do the damaging job better and are not as dependent on having certain items for it as Fenrir is. At the same time, Fenrir is very, very tanky. With the extra protections on his 3, as well as the extra protection that he can get out of his ultimate, he is just one of the most frontline assassins that we have. And he has the utility to kind of stay in a more tanky role compared to other assassins. He has a stun on his 1, which is a decently big circle to hit at least 1 target and lock them down, as well as the ultimate to take somebody completely out of position and let your team focus them down quite easily. Those benefits should not be underestimated, and in a more tank-focused build, he has a much better shot. We're currently in a meta where tanky assassins basically succeed all the time and are the most picked ones, namely Serket, Ratatoskr and Nemesis, and Fenrir can fit in there to some degree. Again, he doesn't have the true damage or the protection reduction that others have, but at least he gets some extra power through his 2, which is also beneficial because it kind of opens up build options in other regards a little bit. Even in previous times, he was already one of those assassins that was often built with only Titan's Bane as a damage item and then just focusing around using the 2 for extra power and otherwise being a frontline assassin. Especially the ultimate buff, as minor as it may sound to some of you, will give him a much better spot as well, I think, as it really allows less getting away from him, which was often an issue to fully execute his job properly. I find it hard to say if this will have a major impact on him being played on higher levels of play. I know that some players really favor him and those may be able to pick him up again, but at the same time he still has certain issues that make him very easily countered in the picking phase, and only if, for example, Artio gets banned, he even has a real shot at being picked by anyone at all. And maybe then he can succeed. I don't think it will be as a full damage assassin though. And with that, thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell. It really helps me out. Also, it gives you the chance to win some codes. Comment of the day goes to Dorian Richards. Duke started death toll on Thor. I'm done, fam. Peace out. That's some recommended item stuff. Here's some advice for you, my friend. Go watch some higher level games from time to time, maybe some SPL, get some info in there, and figure out why people build Death Toll on Thor. Dukesoth, out.